Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are recovering from an incredible Monday Night Football game, and yet another short week as we head to Jacksonville. Make sure you're taking advantage of that Taharka ice cream special we've been taking advantage of. So many people out there. We're trying to get a flavor named after us in the spring, so I see a Baltimore Positive peach cake in our future in 2021. What I certainly see in the future is maybe a football game in January, Luke, and certainly on Monday night, the stakes of Lamar Jackson coming out of the locker room and leading this Willis Reed kind of comeback. I guess the question is, what does this mean for the Ravens in January, for momentum, for all of those things that you want to have going in, where we've talked for 8 years now, Luke. Joe Flacco planking 1 week, Joe Montana the next month, right? Like literally whatever that is that the Ravens look like in November, like not a very good football team. Last 2 efforts out, things are turning a little bit. They're not going to have anything they really can prove the rest of the way. They've crossed their final hurdle other than not effing it up against the Giants and the Jaguars and the Bengals, right? Then the next big game they play, are they going to be capable of going into Buffalo, going into Kansas City, going into Pittsburgh? Because that's probably going to be the assignment, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not winning the division, so they're going on the road. So you just look at the division winners and you kind of figure out, okay, are they going to be the 5, the 6, or the 7? And, I mean, that's to your point, not sure what you're really going to learn over these final 3 weeks other than just taking care of business. And I think the other thing is avoiding serious injuries. And we saw it on the defense with not knowing the severity, but Jimmy Smith exits the game. Devontae Harris exits the game at the very end. Marcus Peters missed some time. I mean, we've talked about the injuries in the secondary all year, and that's been the position group that's been hit the hardest in terms of you're losing Tavon Young week 2, and some of the other guys that have missed time, and they've dealt with a lot there. So, I mean, really, they have to maintain the health that they have at this point over these final 3 weeks, and that's clearly going to really impact what they are able to do in January. But beyond that, you just said it. I mean, they're playing Jacksonville, they're playing the Giants, and they're playing at Cincinnati. I mean, these aren't games that you're going to take a whole lot away. I guess if you win 50-7, if you have that kind
of. But I mean, they're not getting a better ranking because of that, right? I mean, like I would say the same thing you're saying, which is let's get the starting rotation together for October here now, right? Like,
sure.
All right, let's not screw this up. Let's go out and execute things. But there were a lot of things that they could clean up from Monday night, including giving up 42 points, including the amount of penalty. I mean, there were a lot of things that tackling. I mean, all of these things that ail the Ravens, we don't talk about them when Justin hits the 55-yarder and we all go home feeling good about ourselves. But, it was a great game, but a well-played game? I don't know. I think John will have plenty to do in a short week to say, this is where we tighten this up. This is where we get preseason action in here so we can go be the team we thought we were in September in January when we got to get off the bus in Pittsburgh and it's 18 degrees.
Yeah, and I mean, you just made a great point, and Lamar Jackson slips again on 4th down and throws an incomplete pass, or he's sacked, or I mean, this is such a different conversation that we're having. We're asking, why was Lamar Jackson in the locker room as long as he was? What happened to the defense? I mean, for me, I really do look at the defensive side of the ball right now, and they had virtually everyone back. I know Calais Campbell's still not 100%, and he played, I think it was 33 snaps on Monday night, so he did play more than he did against Dallas, but we know he missed the entire practice week, and we know he was questionable, and I know he did a pregame workout and even appeared to be favoring the calf a little bit there, so that's still an issue, but I mean, they gave up almost 500 yards of offense. I saw this was the most the highest number of points the Ravens have allowed in a victory, 42 points allowed. I mean, that's the one thing. We can talk all we want about the running game and Lamar taking off more and being more willing to scramble rather than dropping back and forcing the pass if it's not there. But I'll say this, if you're going to win with a running game in today's NFL, you can't be giving up 42 points a game. That's not going to work. It worked Monday. That's not going to work for 3 or 4 weeks in a row in January. So they
And by
have
the
to clean
way,
up
I
the
don't
defense.
think we're
There's
going to
no
see the same team the next 3 weeks because they're not going to have Lamar Jackson running into Miles Jack or whoever's running around for the. I mean, I don't think they're going to be as brazenly Raven-esque the next 3 weeks. That's my initial prediction. Is that protect
but they,
number 8. You know, we'll win however we need to win. Let him throw it around. Let's do whatever we need to do. And we'll be a different team January the 8th or 10th, whatever that game's going to be, that they'll go back to playing the style they play, which is everything's on the line. I mean, Lamar was leading head first most of the night on Monday night because it's time. It's time for him to run the ball 15 times a game if that's the way they're going to win. Whereas back in October, you didn't want that tread on the tire. And I've never really envisioned it that way or seen it that way other than you and I screaming every week last year in the fourth quarter. Get him out of the game. We're up 35 points. Get him out of the game. Whatever that is, the next 3 weeks, I need Lamar a little more bubble wrap than he was on Monday night. You know, I don't need to beat Jacksonville by 50. I just need to beat them.
well, but you need to beat them. I mean, I think you got to be really careful not to do the whole light switch assumption because I think that's part of the reason they found themselves 6-5.
Well, they were doing
At the
stuff they
point
weren't
that
good
they
at.
did. Well, but that's part of it. And look, I hear you that you don't want to do anything reckless, but we kind of keep coming back to this, and we've talked about this now for 2 years. I mean, it's been over 2 years now since Lamar Jackson took over for an injured Joe Flacco, and I mean, at some point in time, we just have to acknowledge this is what makes this kid special, and that might not translate to a 10-year career or a 15-year career, but it's what makes them special now, and it's what gives them their best chance to win now. And when you're at this point in time, and I hear what you're saying, and I already said I expect them to beat Jacksonville and the Giants, and certainly at Cincinnati Week 17. But I think you got to be careful not to go into turtle mode and just assume you're going to do it going through the motions. I think that's they
It's what's got you
thought they
beat New
beat New
England, right?
England.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, the weather was weird. That was a weird game. I'm not saying that's what they did, but it's this understanding that, hey, the Giants went into Seattle and beat the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are pretty good. So let's not just assume that the Ravens can just roll the ball out there and win. They got to go out there and play, or they got to go out to their home field and play well still. So I hear you on that. I think there's a little something to that, and certainly I'm not at all condoning or endorsing the idea of Lamar Jackson running into linebackers when you're up by 3 touchdowns with 8 minutes to go, but he's
In
gonna
Cincinnati.
run, but he's gonna run and he's gonna get hit some, and that's at some point we just have to accept it, or we're just gonna be miserable through the however long the Lamar Jackson era lasts. And
I can't
that's
accept him getting bent up by an accordion and having the season end and Trace McSorley, our starting quarterback, in in January.
But Joe Flacco had his season end by standing in the pocket. I mean, it's football at some point in time, and at some point we just need to
keep talking
acknowledge
sense
that.
into me, and I'll keep talking sense into you because I.
But I'm just we keep talking about this, but quarterbacks get hurt in the pocket all the time. I mean, you're acting like well, I mean, you're not doing this because everyone talks in this way.
I
And
think he's
I've
done a
talked
better
about it
job of getting
before,
out of
but
bounds and not taking on contact, unnecessary contact. Unnecessary contact. He's improved
sure.
in that area.
I don't think he takes a whole lot of unnecessary contact. I just think it's who he's always been. And look, at some point in time, is he going to get hurt? Probably. Most quarterbacks get hurt at some point. Patrick Mahomes got hurt on a QB sneak last year, and that's something that every quarterback's expected to do. So, we can either keep holding our breath about that, or the Ravens say we need to do what gives us our best chance to win in this point in time because we don't have the weapons around him to improve this passing game beyond throwing it to Mark Andrews and throwing it to Marquise Brown when he catches it, which isn't a whole lot these days, and throwing it a little bit to Willie Snead, but they're limited, and they're more limited than they were last year in the passing game. So, he's going to have to run, and that's part of this. And I think he's okay with that. I don't think it's a case where Lamar Jackson hates running the football. I think he wants to become a better passer, and I think that's something he's really worked at. And we saw the improvement last year, but we haven't seen a step forward. And that's not all him. I think there are lots of reasons why. And we've talked about that. We'll continue to talk about that because, again, I don't think what we saw Monday night is some magical light switch that they're going to start throwing the ball like they did last year because, he missed a couple big throws in the fourth or in the third quarter, as we noted in our previous discussion. So, he's going to run the football. You want him to run the football. That's what makes him special. He is, I'll say it right now, he's the greatest rushing quarterback in NFL history. Am I wrong
thought he was
going to
run for 200. When they put the stats, it was like 126 in the third quarter. And I'm like, well, a 12 and a 20 and then a breakaway, he's got 200 yards, and they left it there all night. I mean, when he threw the pass to Hollywood, I was like, no, you got a first down. Don't run, don't throw the ball. It was fourth down. It's sort of balls of steel in that case, right? To throw the ball to a guy that's dropped it all night with the game on the line and fourth down. I mean, coming off the bench after being a lot. I mean, we'll be talking about this one a long time, Luke. Yeah. We really will.
Well, I'm glad you just brought it up in that context because in our previous discussion, I made the comment that I'm wondering if this game serves as a Joe Flacco in Pittsburgh kind of moment. And look, getting over the Steelers hump in 2010, 2011, especially at Heinz Field, that was more monumental than beating Cleveland in Cleveland. I mean, it's the Browns, and yes, the Browns are better, but there wasn't that. I mean, that had been a roadblock for Flacco and John Harbaugh, not being able to win in Pittsburgh. But that touchdown in 2011, that Sunday night game to Torrey Smith, do we remember just a few plays before that, Joe Flacco threw it to Torrey Smith in the end zone and he dropped it. So, not that it played out exactly that way with Marquise Brown, but he gets a little bit of a chance at redemption after, just some terrible drops, including the one from McSorley where it's like, dude, your backup quarterback's in, got a chance to pick up a first down, and you dropped a pass that you have no excuse to drop. So he had a chance for a little bit of retribution there, a little bit of validating.
Soldier?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that. I think it's a long time before he can start talking like that again. But it just felt like one of those moments. We talk about those graduation moments, right? Seattle last year was a graduation moment for Lamar Jackson to kind of truly become the leader of the team. We all remember the sideline clip of him telling Harbaugh he wants to go for it, and then he says something to Marshall Yanda, and Marshall Yanda's like, hell yeah, I want to go for it. And you could see it was almost that passing of the torch where Lamar Jackson, that truly became his team in that moment. This feels like it has a chance to be another one of those moments, and they don't have to go to a Super Bowl this year for that to continue to be a big moment. As I mentioned, Flacco won in Pittsburgh 2 years in a row, and it wasn't until 2012 that they broke through and won the Super Bowl. So it doesn't have to be defined by how the rest of this season goes, but it just feels like a really big moment for him. It feels like a big moment for this football team. And as I mentioned, how many times this year, Nestor, since – go back to the first Pittsburgh game where Ronnie Stanley goes down with the season-ending ankle injury. How many times have we uttered the sentiment, it just hasn't been the Ravens' year? Over and over and over, we've talked about it in the term since
oh my God,
early
as
November.
A book, if they were to win the Super Bowl coming out of this as an 11-5, 6 seed or 7 seed, whatever the hell they'll be, if that were to happen, the chapters in this book going back to COVID and how Lamar Jackson ever wound up here. And just on and on and on. The amount of money they give Humphrey and Stanley in the middle of the year, kind of unprecedented in the history of the league. No team's giving $200 million worth of money away in the middle of the year, right? Literally.
Well, I don't know about that so much as far as just that they extended.
Well, they were going to extend those guys, but that's a very difficult thing to do, to be signing guys in the middle of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that a whole lot as far as when that happens. There's been Jalen Ramsey got a big contract. Right.
Mahomes got a champagne.
It was right.
I remember that.
I think it was right when the season started. So, but for me again, it more so goes back to the injuries and just how things have been difficult for this team. And when something like what happened Monday takes place, it opens up the possibilities. When something like that happens, you say, maybe they can make a run. Maybe they can get the right draw here and go into a hostile environment and Lamar Jackson wins his first playoff game after losing at home the last couple of years and being the favorite last year, and you kind of break through, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, this is just like playing in the regular season. This is just like playing at Louisville. It's just it's a bigger stage, but
Well,
it's
they're
still
not
football.
overwhelmed by any of these teams other than, I would say,
No,
Kansas City.
Kansas City. I mean that's the one.
At some point, you're going to have to beat them or somebody's going to have to get them out of the way, and that's possible as well in a tournament, right? But that's the one where if that's the first one you see, you say, well, if you're going to go down swinging, go out there and give it, go find your kryptonite, Lamar, right? But if you draw Pittsburgh or Buffalo, I look at these games and I'm like, none of these teams are superior. I think Kansas City has the possibility of being that. And I think people looked at the Ravens as having the possibility of being that. I don't any longer with the amount of talent that they will not have on the field in January.
Yeah, and it's looking now like the Chiefs are going to be the number 1 seed with Pittsburgh having lost the last 2. So you're not going to get the Chiefs in the first round. So going to Pittsburgh, going to Buffalo, look, that doesn't mean the Ravens will win, but there should be no thought whatsoever that they can't win against those teams. And that's giving Buffalo credit. That's looking at Pittsburgh and saying, boy, they've got some issues right now. But they can get straightened out in the same way that the Ravens were left for dead a couple weeks ago. So, it's a week-to-week league. And that's why it's important for the Ravens not to get too high over this, to get back to having a regular week now with a Sunday game. First time they'll play on a Sunday in nearly a month. And go out and take care of business against Jacksonville. And it's, that's why I said you got to be careful with, you mentioned about not exposing Lamar too much against the Jaguars. You got to win the football game, and you got to be you. And that's something that I do think they fought a little bit this year. They certainly, I certainly understand wanting to grow the passing game and evolving. And as much as I'm sitting here saying embrace who Lamar Jackson is, yeah, you do want to think about it in a big picture term of not just his career, but being more multiple as an offense. But there were certainly times this year, and I don't think it was because of health other than maybe the Cincinnati game, but there have absolutely been times, and we've seen it, and TV broadcasters have pointed it out at the time, where he's dropping back to pass, and there's an opening for him to take off, but he's throwing the football. And look, that's good for his long-term growth, but in the here and now, and you're trying to do everything you can to win football games now and get into the playoffs now and win a Super Bowl this year, him taking off more makes them better. So, and we certainly saw that on Monday night. I mean, there were a number of instances in that first half where he dropped back and then he takes off and good things happen then. So, again, in the big picture, are there things about this offense that still concern me? Absolutely. Do I think the Ravens are going to win the Super Bowl now because of what happened Monday night? Not really, even though I picked them to win at the beginning of the year. To your point, there's some key pieces that they're missing right now, and they're not getting back. But that said, do I feel it's more plausible now that they can make a run? Yeah. You see what happened on Monday night. It's just one of those where you just open up the mind to new possibilities.
They have enough good football players. They
still have a lot of good football players. And to the point we made a few moments ago, yeah, you can't allow 493 yards and 42 points, and you've got to clean up your defense. And that's something that, as much as we'll talk about Lamar and the running game, even last week, they let Dallas move the ball a little bit more than I thought they would, quite frankly. So that's something that Wink Martindale and this defense is going to have to get figured out, because you're going to have to, you're going to be facing some good offenses in January at the very least, even if you're not over these final 3 weeks, if you're truly talking about not just getting in, but wanting to make some noise.
You hear us talk about all of our incredible WNST sponsors. I'm drinking some Royal Farms coffee out of my Cole roofing mug. Billy Cole's going to come on this week. We talked about government shutdowns last week and what that means to local business. All of it out at BaltimorePositive.com. Right now we're talking to the Chamber of Commerce folks, talking about shopping local. We're delivering local ice cream to you in Taharka and Taharka Brothers. Please order the ice cream. Support us, support our new endeavors here at Baltimore Positive, and support the local people making delicious ice cream that comes to your door. Comfort food for the winter. You might need that for the playoff game in Pittsburgh on January the 8th. Ness at BaltimorePositive.com reaches me. You can still find Luke at WNST.net. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. We are putting all of it together into one big box It's BaltimorePositive.com.